Yeah, 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 yeah. All right. Well, Shelby, it's a pleasure to actually have our first official live conversation, see each other
Yes,
through
so
video.
happy.
I've been following you for a while, since before I was in the position I was. I'll introduce you to the best of my ability, seeing as this is our first time meeting. I know you're a level 3 certified trainer, one of the few and proud that can make that claim. You're also a parkour athlete. You are a mom. You are a sister to a very creative individual who's very artistic. You're the wife of a musician. And you're just a superwoman, right? Like I've seen what you do in the community, and that's what got me so interested in finally, now that I'm in the role that I'm in, to have this conversation with you, because you seem to really try and empower everybody around you. I saw you have like this elderly like parkour class slash natural movement stuff that's super awesome, and you're constantly, it seems to me like you're constantly pushing yourself to achieve something, uh, or improve yourself overall, like in every aspect of your life, not just the physical. So I think what you aspire to do physically just transfers to every other part of your life.
Thank you for the intro. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's how I present myself online, and I hope I do that in the community as well. So yes,
Awesome, awesome.
happy to be here.
I imagine it is the truth, as they say. So, really, where I want to start is the origin story, right? So, how did you get into natural movement? What's piqued your interest? What got you started?
Yeah. Well, so for me, my story starts with I ran into a problem that I needed to solve. And I think so much of the kind of coaching that I do now is presenting people problems to solve. So movement problems. So for me, I was, I think, 25 years old, and I had a friend who's 20 years older than me who invited me to go Great Lakes surfing. And we went together, and I couldn't paddle out. I wasn't strong enough. I didn't have the endurance, I didn't have the skills I needed to do it, and I was super humbled. And I'm like, I'm 20 years younger than this person, and I cannot do what she's doing. So that was like a wake up call to me that I was lacking something that I needed. In this case, it was strength and endurance. So from there, it kind of started my interest in strength training and skill-based movement. I had this real-world problem to solve and kind of worked backwards to figure out how to do it. I'd never been in a gym. I'd never trained before. I remember I showed up to like my first group fitness class in pajamas because I didn't own workout clothes. Like I was like, oh, I don't know. And so I feel like ever since, like this whole kind of adventure I've been on since then has been finding compelling problems to solve. So whether that's an injury to overcome or lack of strength or mobility, or a lack of skill set to like serve as a barrier between me and something I'm wanting to try. I always find myself kind of reverse engineering these problems. So with MovNat, I found MovNat as a pregnant mom. I had a toddler, I was pregnant with my second child, and I was like, what can we do together as a family? Like, how can we move together? I don't really feel like going to a gym and like being apart from my kid is like gonna work for us. So I started kind of finding this inspiration online, kind of trying it out at like parks, just kind of simulating to the best of my ability what I saw. And then I found out there's a MovNat gym in my community, a bike ride away from my house. So that's when I met Rock Hancock, and he became my mentor and guide as I kind of found natural movement.
Shout out to Rock, he's awesome. So you actually really really piqued my interest there, because you mentioned something that people don't get to until they're far later in their career, and it seems like you've reached that conclusion at the onset, which is very rare, which is movement designed to solve problems and reverse engineering. Because usually the route that everybody takes is you bodybuild first, then you get into functional training. Then you get into like something extreme like CrossFit or endurance or cycling, or you niche out. Then you get into something else, and then you rediscover natural movement, and then you're like, oh, this makes the most sense. But you seem like you were like trying to find that right off the bat, because you had like you said, I had this movement problem and I wanted to fit. You said skill-based training or skill acquisition. So what other kind of background do you have that makes you think like that?
An art background, a theater background, a creative background. I never did sports as a kid. I was sedentary until I was 25, the day I went to the Great Lakes. I didn't do anything. Nothing. I was in chronic pain. I had chronic neck pain from being sedentary. And I couldn't figure out why I was in pain all the time. Turns out being super weak
Yeah, 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 yeah.
will make you be in pain all the time. I just didn't know. I didn't know there was like this physical world available to me. And now, like as a 40-year-old, so much of what I do is exactly what I did as a kid. I just didn't call it fitness. I climbed trees. I was always the kid at the top of the swing set. Like I'd scale the swing set and just be sitting up there. I would build forts. I would, jump across streams. Like that's basically what I'm just doing again, but a little bit more in systems. So, there's like a rock climbing system, there's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu system, there's MovNat as a system. So I'm just kind of finding ways to order these movements that we just do as kids.
Nice. That's amazing. So really, what I'm getting out of it is that because you remember your childhood so well, you're able to apply that to adulthood and connect the dots pretty seamlessly, because that's pretty remarkable. Now, how did you start to, so Rock became your mentor. What did you do prior to becoming in the fitness industry, being a coach or movement practitioner? What was like the job before, and then what got you to get into this?
Yeah, I was a video producer, so I did everything from shooting to editing to like pre-production, you know, all the stuff in between, kind of the whole part of the process. So I would have days where I'd be super physically active, hauling equipment, setting up lights, standing, like just such a physical job. And it kind of reminded me of when I did theater. It's like, wow, we're making this thing in real time with people. But then I have weeks of just sitting at a computer editing. And my body just like did not like that sedentary those sedentary weeks. It just wasn't a good fit for me anymore. And I think especially having children and kind of being in this more like head, heart, hands role, like that parenting requires. I was like, I want to do this all the time. Like, I don't want to be at the computer as many hours as I am. So, practically, I kind of started making the shift to coaching because I wanted an embodied career. I wanted a career that put me in community with people, that had me moving with people, and again, had me solving problems and finding purpose in the real world rather than the simulated world.
You are like singing my tune. So I
Yay!
have this discussion with professionals all the time, right? That especially nowadays when you look at like social media, unfortunately, is always very dogmatic, right? You have like these far extremes. You have people on the right who are like anything outside of a barbell and a dumbbell is a waste of time and you're not getting strong. And those people fundamentally just misunderstand that strength is relative to oneself, because who are you to judge somebody where they are in their movement journey, right? If I lift 50 pounds today and 60 pounds tomorrow, I've gotten stronger. So what does it matter? Do I need to squat 300 pounds? Maybe at some point I'll be able to, but right now maybe it's not in my scope in the next 2 days, right? If I can't lift 50 pounds, I'm not gonna lift 300 pounds. And the second thing they fail to understand is that movement in itself is not necessarily the skill. It's a pattern. When those movements are put together to solve a problem or to perform a task, that's when it becomes a skill. And all these things do, barbells, kettlebells, maces, all they are constraints that give you something to teach yourself the movement or help others teach the movement, right? I can squat with a mace and press it out, or a kettlebell and press it out, or put a sandbag on my shoulder and squat it, or a barbell here, or a barbell in front, or a barbell zercher. And that's going to challenge the system in a different way that will, with enough adaptability and enough variability, will give me the opportunity to fine tune that movement pattern. And that's what people don't understand. Movement in itself is a behavior that's designed to solve problems. I mean, we didn't, and then the second thing you hit that really sung with me was the simulation, right? The gym is like this simulated environment, lights, perfect floor, and I don't have necessarily a problem with the gym. I don't think they should exist, but I've always worked at a gym, right? It's this weird paradoxical thing, I think what you need is a center of practice that gives you, like, your home gym is really cool, right? You got mats, you got a rope, you got rings, you got a climbing wall, you got nested. I remember you showed me the nested vaulting boxes that you have. Like, you have such cool stuff that you've built and you've put together because you're like incredibly handy. And that's where I think these experts on one side of the field lose not, I don't want to say anything like credibility, but I think it's where they get lost in the sauce. And then on the far left you have the fascia gurus, like everything is a spiral, we're playing with a cable, and there's no problem with that, but they also forget that the thing that they're touting is just another constraint working another kind of movement pattern, and that everything sits in the umbrella of natural movement. Everything is just a regressed or progressed form of whatever the pattern is. So how you already have that connected so deeply, having started at 25 years old, is amazing. And you didn't get it. I feel like you got that pretty quick into the thing. So that's really a remarkable thing. And then embodying your career to try and help the community and do that is pretty awesome. So you started this career in fitness. You're helping people coach. You're doing this stuff. You went first, you did your group exercise classes, then you found MovNat through pregnancy. Then did you go straight to parkour?
So for me, parkour was kind of parallel to MovNat. I mean,
Nice.
MovNat and parkour have a common ancestor, right? With Georgie Bear's movement method
Natural method,
naturel.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Yes. It's the same thing. It just maybe slightly different practices, I would argue. So I feel like MovNat is really amazing as a system, as a methodology with regressions and progressions. I actually don't really love the word regression. I like to say option. But like you said before, you can't really compare skill or strength levels. It's all relative, right? It's up to the mover and their journey. So, I'm not going to give someone a like 300-pound loaded barbell if they can't squat 50 pounds. So, anyways, that was a rabbit trail. All that to say, I find these systems to be really compelling because there's something for everyone, and it's all the same practice. So something I really enjoy about parkour is it's non-competitive. We're all doing it together. So there's not necessarily like adaptations or regressions. It's parkour. We are all doing parkour. And so like when we're in a jam setting or we're in a class, we might be doing slightly different things, but we're all practicing together. So that's something I really appreciate about MovNat is it feels like a system that's for all people, whatever level they're at. And it's just a little bit more granular as
Yeah,
far as
yeah.
its approach. It's much more skill based as like individual skills and kind of looking at skills sort of in like a vertical line, like here to here, but then it's also very expansive. So it's kind of like a spiral going up. There's always more with complexity and that's kind of where the natural environment comes in with MovNat is we can increase complexity with being outside or being at height. Where parkour kind of works with a more fixed environment typically, whether that be concrete urban settings or a design gym.
Yeah. I,
But
I definitely get what you're saying. Like, one thing that always drew me, like right after I did my MovNat certification in 2020, I was like, this is the most comprehensive, physical education manual that I've seen. And I'm a certified exercise physiologist. I've done my certified functional strength coach. I did my Olympic weightlifting. I've done all these courses. And this one was the most robust in terms of how it's able to communicate the stuff. And it is very, very granular. But it also gives, like, a coach who understands that granularity has the opportunity to scaffold any movement and any position into a learning opportunity for their practitioner, for their student, which I think is like a huge kind of advantage when somebody goes through the education. If they tie those two things together, I think that thing is massive. So okay, so parkour and MovNat were parallel. and then you are very heavily involved in your community. You work with a group that I think is underserved and underappreciated and is not should be more involved in the physical activity, right? Is the elderly population. And the beauty about it is you don't approach it in your typical way, right? You're not doing silver sneakers, which I feel is not challenging enough to improve an elderly person's capacity, because at that point, they're fighting entropy, and you're trying to delay the inevitable, but you want to give them the best quality of life that they can have in their older age. And I've seen you teach them how to fall. I've seen you teach them how to safety vault. I've seen you teach them how to precision jump. I've seen you teach them how to do balance walking. So how did you get started working with that group? How did you overcome the fear is what I want to know, because a lot of elderly people are like, whoa, 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 there's no way I'm doing that. And I understand you have to teach them and show them that everything is possible, but how did you even start that group?
Hmm. Well, so the first thing I'll say is like with a movement class or community, there's kind of like three circles, and this comes from Jesse Danger's awesome book, Embrace Challenge. There's mental, physical, and social. And so if you have a huge imbalance in one of those, people aren't going to feel safe in your class. They're not going to take risks. They're not going to try new things. They might hang back. They might not come back to the class. So it's about kind of tending those three circles. Do people feel welcome? So, like the social circle, do they feel welcome? Do they feel like their voice is heard? Do they feel known? Do they feel like they can ask for things that they need? Physical is, do they feel prepared? Do they have the conditioning necessary for what we're asking them to do? Or do they have like an adaptation or modification available to them? And then mental, do they have some tools for dealing with fear when it comes up, for having an internal dialogue and an internal sense of what is a risk worth taking versus a risk that's not worth taking? And how can you cultivate the ability to discern that, but also the ability to maybe push into some of that discomfort? So a phrase I like to use is challenge by choice. And that's something I see all the time in our class is people, we give options and everyone does the hardest option, the most challenging option, because it's fun. It's compelling. It's interesting. It's purposeful. And because we've done so much work to establish that social safety in our class, people are willing to push into those challenging spaces. The other thing we do as well is, because we have so many returning students, like folks who've been taking our class 3 years in a row, we've started training people to be spotters. So we will equip the community to support each other. Whether that's, hey, we need like an instructor over here, or like, we have 2 spotters on each side. And people can ask for the support they need, whether that's a spotter or a modification or more challenge. Um, so yeah, I think that's how we've been able to kind of get people doing things that maybe they typically wouldn't do. And the other thing too is our class is super silly. Like, it's super playful. And there's an element of delight in almost everything we do. We do tons of practical, skill-based, especially fall resilience-based work. But we also play games. We have a lot of novel movement. And I feel like those are just as rich as kind of the more like traditional skill-based or strength-based movements. Um, and I think that play can be a side door into something where there might be fear. So like one of the number one predictors of falls, like someone who's at risk of falling, is fear of falling. So how can we get people to practice and like become less afraid of falling? Sometimes it's through play. Sometimes it's through these kind of unconventional approaches. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, no,
It's
no.
kind
It
of a
definitely
ramble.
it definitely does. But the other part of the question is, how did you even like what was the
Oh, just practically?
yeah, how did you start the group practically?
Sure.
Like, did you just set up like a
Yeah.
flyer and we're just like, come do parkour if you're 60 plus?
I wish I could say that it was me, but it wasn't. I joined a teaching team. So there's a
Nice.
physical therapist in my community who, she is just such a badass. Like, hands down. Susan Frickin, she's amazing. She really sees the need of getting out of therapeutic settings for people's wellness, for people's well-being. So, she sees clients one-on-one, she's done some like small group training, but she's like, we need to get people like moving, like like actually challenging themselves. So she started teaching classes in our community. And one of her initiatives is Ballroom Basics for Balance, and it's a dance class for improving older adults' balance. And it's super fun. So then she started doing this Parkour for Seniors class. There was a group called PK Silver that would train instructors to teach older adults parkour elements. They are no longer doing those trainings, but that's kind of where that seed was planted, was with that group. But what we're doing now with our teaching team is like very unique to our own practice and kind of based on all of our different experiences coming together. So we have an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, and then two personal trainers on our teaching team, and it's a blast.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, I love like this natural approach to health and wellness versus, like you said, getting them out of the therapeutic, because there's this really weird kind of mental opportunity for a shift in perspective, right? If I'm in a therapeutic setting, then the perception is I'm unwell. And if I'm unwell, then I'm incapable. And if I'm incapable, although I'm making an effort to get better, that effort is very diminished because of fear. And if you take somebody out of a therapeutic setting, then the perception is I'm not sick, I just need to practice or work on something. And it kind of gives them, because they're in a different mental state, it gives them an opportunity to really kind of shift perspective. And then plus you've created an environment that's joyful, playful, silly, and it has a lot of social aspect to it that it's going to make it joy, like people are going to want to do it. So that's really remarkable. I think that's an amazing thing. Um, let's shift perspectives onto some other things. You did your L3 when?
Oh, 2022.
2022. Nice. And what was your favorite thing about it?
I liked so much about it. I liked being outside for 5 days straight. That was awesome. Yeah, like it was just 100% outside. We slept outside, we ate outside, we trained outside, we sat and learned outside. Um, and just being with folks who had put in so much effort and just like such an amazing collection of knowledge, just all in one place. It's kind of like a movement weirdo convention. Like it was just like so awesome to have access to such deep thinkers, people who committed their practice to this knowledge and sharing this knowledge. And then just being highly challenged. I just really love being highly challenged.
Nice. And what was your most challenging thing in the L3?
Heights. I really struggle with heights. I think probably my proudest moment was also my scariest moment. There was a challenge, a balance at height challenge, where
Yeah, yeah.
we had to walk across a like I don't know 1.25 inch metal pipe at about 7 feet high. So we had to do like a series of muscle ups, mount the bar, and then get across the bar. And I was just like frozen from just the exposure. But I did it. I completed it. Cried a lot after I did it, like from pride, not from fear. But yeah, I just really struggle with heights.
I had the same issue with my that test. I actually couldn't complete it when I took it then. I had to complete it when I came back here
Yeah.
to Miami. Yeah, that one is always like a weird one that you're like, you can do the movement, it's not a problem. You can do it on the floor, not a problem. The moment there's a little element of danger, you're like, oh, it's just
Yeah.
like this weird
Well,
thing,
yeah.
you
And when
know?
you're in nature, there's not a mat under you.
No,
There are rocks
no.
under you.
Yeah, 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 not at all. I remember like the first day we did training, we're doing like dive rolls outdoors
Yeah.
over logs, and it's like
Mhm.
you're landing on pine cones and on
Oh
rocks,
yeah.
and you just eat it. It's like not a big deal, but
Oh,
it's so fun.
you were in Conifer too, right? For your
Yeah, yeah,
L3?
yeah, yeah. I did my
Okay,
L3 in
yeah.
Conifer with
Yeah.
Amato, Smith, the two Nates, and Diana.
Mhm.
Those were my
Yeah.
three instructors for my L3, and we stayed outside. But that was my first time ever camping, ever being outdoors for 5 days straight.
Oh, wow,
And we
yeah.
did everything outdoors, but I had never. I'd never done any of that. And then being at
Hmm.
8,000 feet of elevation coming from Miami, which
Hmm.
was zero, was also another pretty good little challenge in there. Yeah, everybody kind of says the
Wait,
same
the
thing.
elevation was intense.
Yeah. I was short of breath when I landed in Denver. And then right when I started to kind of start getting comfortable with Denver, you go up another 3,000 feet, and then you're like, I'm winded again. It was like there
Yeah.
was never a moment where I was, and then I got a sinus infection while I was there,
Oh
so it
no.
just kept like adding up. All right, that's awesome. Like that's the same kind of. I interviewed recently like Linus Latorin, um, Connor Arthur, Mateo, and some other people that recently just did their L3 in the
Mhm.
Chechnya, France with or won. And I think anybody that I've ever talked to about the L3, everybody's like, my favorite part is just being around like-minded people and just doing this stuff together. And it's definitely a crucible,
Mhm.
that's for sure. It's definitely
Mhm.
like a huge, crazy challenge. Okay,
So fun.
what's
I love a crazy challenge.
yeah. There's definitely some crazy stuff you have to do. I mean, did you guys did the hike and then climb the like you boulder up that rock face?
Oh yeah.
So my funny story with that is it was like you can't speak, right? Like you're
Mm.
you're not allowed to talk and you're trying to be respectful and have reverence in nature and all this stuff and we're barefoot and we're walking and we get to that boulder and you gotta go up that boulder and you kind of climb up the boulder and you get up to it and then you get to that little spot on it that's a little flat and I'm not talking. There's no rope, there's no harness, there's nothing. And in my head, I'm like, I'm seeing people go up, and I'm like, there's not a rock face in Miami. Doesn't exist,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
It's beach and suburban. That's it. So I was
Yeah.
like, we don't even have a hill. We have one hill, Tropical Park. I was like, all right. So, you make your way up because you don't want to talk. I didn't want to ask questions because I thought I'd fail.
Mhm.
Get up to this little slot thing, and then there's that jump with the Ninja Warrior wall, I call it, that you got to kind of shimmy up and then push and
Oh.
then catch. And the other Nate's there, and he's just like miming what you got to do. But you make that jump and you look down, and there's nothing there. It's just a drop, and you're like,
Mm.
oh, okay. So you jump and you get up there and you shimmy and then you get and then you're at the top and then I walk and I see everything and I find myself getting like emotional about what I just accomplished and what I just did and there's these
Mm.
thoughts that are occurring in my head and then Nate gets up there and he's like, it's the first time everybody passes the walking test. Usually people opt out of the climbing part. And I turned my
Mm.
head and I looked at him and I was like, you could have opted out. I was like, if I would have known that, I would have taken that option, because I was so like, but I just didn't want to fail for talking, so I ended up doing
Mm.
something that I didn't even realize I was capable of doing out
Mm.
of fear of just failing through speaking. So it was such a bizarre moment for me because I was like, oh,
Yeah.
definitely more capable than I give myself credit for. So that was like my funny moment for L3. Did you have a funny moment in your L3?
Yeah. So, by the end of the last day, which is like the intensive nature immersion, and I'm not going to give too many details because
Yeah.
the
We got to
fun
keep it
part
keep
is you
yeah, it's
you
feeling it.
don't know. It's a lot. Expect it to be challenging. But everyone's feet by the end of the day were like um not like cut up or like hurt, but I think our nerve endings were just like overwhelmed. And it was like a combination of like the rocks were really hot and like the sand was really hot by the end of the day. And so like people were just like there was like some folks shaking from just like they're like I think my nervous system is just cooked from the pain. And so a few people ended up dropping their pants and putting their feet in their pants and just like shuffling in their just
like
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 because we were allowed at
pantsies.
the yes, like the test was over and then someone else took their t-shirt off and like wrapped it around their feet and did the same thing because we weren't allowed shoes on the way back, but like the test was done so we could like drop our pants and put it over our feet. So
That's
I
funny.
did not do that because I
You
don't
had
feel like I was able to drop my pants as a woman, but
yeah.
like
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's
yes.
pretty funny. That's awesome. Okay, so now let's talk about one of the biggest things that I want to overcome is that some people come in to the industry and they get a certification. It could be in anything, and they might get their MovNat certification, their level 1 or their level 2, because they're very passionate about trying to help others. And generally, what happens is two things kind of occur. One of the things is they have this kind of fear of putting themselves out there They may not feel 100% confident in their skill set yet because they're so new to it, and they have this fear of being financially compensated, right? It's just like this weird thing, like asking for money to provide a service is really uncomfortable for some people. That's number one. And then number two is that weird like faux imposter syndrome. Did you deal with any of that? And if you did, how did you overcome it?
Brian, that's the story of my life. I don't know if it's more common for women than men, but here's what I would say is this is I'm talking to you, someone out there with imposter syndrome. Your knowledge is you have something to offer. Like everyone has something to offer. And yes, we all are learning and we're all on a trajectory of getting better. You could take a million certifications. You could take a million have a million mentorship hours. But you still have something to offer right now. So if like accepting compensation is uncomfortable for you initially, I would suggest shadowing. Go find someone in the community doing work that's awesome. Just volunteer with them, maybe for a couple months. Like really get some like coaching reps under your belt. And then make a plan, like make a actionable plan to start doing work on your own. I think at least in the film community, like some of the best advice I ever got was like, go make your shitty first films. It's like you just have to go make bad movies. Sometimes you have to go like teach kind of like some mediocre movement classes. Like you just have to like get the experience in and it's gonna get better. So I would say work with a mentor, shadow and volunteer, and then like make a plan to go do it. And maybe that means you're co-teaching. Maybe you have another person with you if quality is a concern for you. But I think once you start getting more confident in your coaching, then I think you're going to be able to see the value in it. Like you'll start a positive feedback loop from the people you're teaching, and that will like help you remember, oh yeah, this is valuable. I should get compensated for this. So I think just like get out there and pay yourself.
That's great advice. I use the homage fail as fast as possible, right? Because failure is a stepping stone to success. And you can't, if you fear it, then you've never done it because failure is inevitable. The point is like how there's two things that need to happen when you fail. It's can you recognize you failed? That's the first reality moment. And then the second one is if so, why did you fail? And then you should be able to answer that question. If not, ask somebody to help you understand. And then the third piece is how can you not fail again, right? How can you improve on the situation? And
Hmm.
I've approached that in my own movement career. I've approached that, I've taught a lot of internships and mentorships and all that stuff. I used to teach at a university, and I used to work in management at, some boutique fitness facilities and stuff like that. And I used to pull that thing with anybody who's I've ever worked with, because when you're in any kind of setting, it's fear of disappointing yourself, fear of disappointing those around you, and if you're not in an environment that allows you to do that, I think you need to find an environment that allows you to do that.
Hmm.
Because you need to have somewhere where you could do it safely. Although I think when you do it in the worst way possible and you're able to own up to it, I think that's where you secure the most amount of growth, which is the reality of it. But I think that's like the term that I use. Like just go for it. You're gonna mess up,
Hmm.
just figure out how you messed up and then figure out how to improve it, and that's what's going to be the thing. But I definitely love your advice. I think it's wonderful, it's clear, and it's true, right? Everybody does have something to offer.
Yeah, and there's kind of what you're saying about expectations. Maybe we're afraid of disappointing ourselves, or maybe we're afraid of disappointing the gym owners or whoever we're working under. Two questions I also learned from Jesse Danger in his coaches training through the movement creative is to kind of have like the feedback process start from within. So the questions he'll have people ask are, what decisions did you make? And what would you have done differently? And that comes from the teacher first before you give feedback. And I think so it's so nice to let people have their own kind of critique process before starting to layer on exterior expectations.
External critiquing, yeah, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because I think that like you're saying, like you can tell when something didn't go well, but maybe just pausing and kind of like allowing that to be a teaching moment instead of like, I'm done, I'm a failure.
Yeah, 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 that's the worst thing you could do. Like, oh man,
Yes.
I suck, and then never do it again.
Yeah,
and
don't do
never
that.
giving yourself the opportunity to at least try. I do think it's important to have like a realistic understanding of when you've put in, and not to discern anybody, but right there has to be a come to Jesus moment where you're just like, okay, I've tried, and then figure out when you need to pivot and change. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you need like a career change, right? Just
Yeah.
potentially means you need a different approach. The I get to a mountain, I look at the mountain and I say, I can't climb this mountain. I tried climbing, I keep falling. Hmm, I'm gonna go around the mountain, but then you start going around and you give up halfway because you're like, oh shit, it's a lot bit broader than I thought it was gonna be. And
Hmm.
then sometimes you just gotta blast yourself through the mountain to get through. Sometimes it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna go through this thing. I'm just gonna put a tunnel in here and just drill myself all the way through. And it's just you gotta kind of find that with yourself, and the only way you do it is by making the attempt and being true to yourself and having that internal conversation with yourself and being empathetic towards yourself, right? I think a lot of people we can be our harshest critics.
Hmm.
All right.
Hmm.
You keep mentioning the Jesse Danger book that you've read. Besides that book, or you can even talk about that book furthermore, what other pieces of information would you recommend people to check out?
Oh, I'm not prepared for this. Wow. I think that like something I'm learning about is like nonviolent communication, which is again starting with the self, like learning your own needs and boundaries, and then learning how to express that uh, outwardly towards your relationships and your community. So I feel like that's kind of under the umbrella of resources that would really help a coach. Yeah, the movement creative, their coaches training is awesome. I would recommend that. And then there's just like some really cool resources in the parkour community as well. They have a gym owners group that is like, there's some pretty cool resources in there. Um, USPK, I feel like, is a great organization that does a really good job kind of organizing parkour as a sport and as a community. And then like stuff that Wild Strong puts out. That I love their Strong by Nature podcast, and then they have so many awesome resources they put out through their newsletter, through their website. They are a group in the UK or Scotland. I'm sorry, I don't remember. They have different chapters in different communities, and it's outdoor movement communities. So they do coaches training. They also do some online programming for people who've never done strength training who just want to start at home. So they teach like strength training basics, and then they're starting to get more into fall resilience work as well for older adults. So their stuff is awesome.
Nice. So two of those places stood out really big. From Wild Strong, you said, and the other one was Movement Collective.
Yes.
Because I'm on a
Create the movement creative.
creative,
Movement
yeah. Because
creative. Yep.
I'm on a journey of finding as many affiliate partners to also increase our education as trainers. I don't know if you saw, we got an affiliate partnership with Primal Health Coach Institute. Down the pipe, we're going to be affiliate. We're the next, I think, official announcement will be GMB. Then Animal Flow is going to become an official affiliate partner with us. Foot Collective just got on board, so we'll have some Foot Collective stuff. So this gives me an opportunity to reach out to, because I don't know everything. So this is cool. These are resources that I know worked for you, so I can reach out to them and see if they're willing to contribute to our kind of growing network of continuing education. As you know, I
Cool.
don't know if you saw that I redid that too, right? Continuing education. For those
Yeah.
of you who don't know, is cheaper, or it has a third alternative. You
Mm.
can pay $100, just present that you've done continuing education. Once that's approved, your certification is valid for another 3 years. If you want to do it by attendance, or if you want to do it by the film, by the video footage, that all still exists. So that's awesome. Okay, so now one of my favorite topics, jujitsu. How'd you get into it?
Mhm. Honestly, during my L1, my teacher told me, yeah, everyone should do a martial art. And he's like, yeah, I would
100%.
recommend. He's like, you should do jujitsu. He said, you're less likely to get injured, which I can tell you, not true.
Not true. Not
Currently have two jujitsu injuries,
not
so
true. I have several.
uh, yeah, like
It
I'm
only
like
gets worse,
currently injured.
and it
Yeah,
only gets worse the higher you get. Like
yeah,
my first
yeah.
catastrophic injury at blue belt, and then now I'm a brown belt, and it's just like because
Yep.
because the matchups get a little bit more intensive. So it's like, you're
Yeah.
going for a heel hook or an arm bar, and you're a little bit more adept at defending, so you can eat it a little bit more before you have to tap, and sometimes you still
Hmm.
miscalculate that every now and then. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not even during the submission. It's changing positions, or somebody on the mat next to you does like a cartwheel or gets flipped and they land on top of
Hmm.
you. I got healed in the eyeball the
Yeah.
other day. So yeah. Okay, so
Mm, yeah.
I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
and from a philosophical standpoint, from just an evolutionary standpoint, movement was survival, but movement was also power, right? If I was capable and I could beat you up, I could take your stuff. And
Hmm.
the unfortunate reality is you needed to know how to protect your stuff. And although that we're in a much more civilized society now, and I hope to never have to use, well, I've had to use my jujitsu in public before, not by choice, and it saved me. But the point is that it's a skill that rounds out the rest of your capability. There's only so much a heavy deadlift can give you. And the more techniques you have under your belt and the more you've tested them in real life situations and pressure tested them and been forced to comply with nature or whatever the situation is and forced to overcome it, then you're more prepared when shit hits the fan, so to speak.
Hmm.
So I got into jujitsu not by desire. I was doing my undergraduate degree, and I was fortunate enough to take a graduate course in exercise physiologist. I was able to take that course as an undergraduate and take the graduate level course for credit towards graduation for my undergrad course. And it was a course called Elite Conditioning, Elite Strength and Conditioning, or something like that. And I ended up getting MMA as my project, and I had to create like a 8 week training block for an MMA fighter, and we had to do a biomechanical analysis and a metabolic analysis of the sport. And at the time, I went to Florida International University, and they had a jiu-jitsu club there. And one of the guy that I did my project with had a buddy who was in the School of Engineering who had access to like high-speed cameras. So we took the high-speed cameras to do like analysis of an armbar and some common submissions, and then they coaxed us into doing the class. So, we're
Oh.
doing the class and somebody puts me in a guillotine choke. And we're not even
Uh-huh.
like actually like rolling, we're not grappling. It's I do a guillotine, you do a
Mm.
guillotine. I do a
Hmm.
guillotine, you do a guillotine. And the guy who's doing the guillotine on me is like he's not convinced that this thing works. And at the time I had a very large Adam's apple. As you'll see, mine is like pretty smooth right now,
Yeah.
and he ended up breaking my hyoid bone. He was like, I
Oh.
don't think this works. And then he like ripped it, and my neck exploded, my ears popped, my eyes welled up, my sinus drained, couldn't breathe, couldn't swallow,
Wow.
and that was a pretty catastrophic injury that I
Wow.
swore to myself, I'm never doing that again. And then you
Hmm.
fast forward years later, I turned 30 years old, I get married, um, and my wife is like, I want to do jujitsu. And I'm like, no, you don't. She's like, yeah, I do. And she wanted to do it together. And I was fortunate enough that the facility that I worked at the time, one of my mentors, Jesus Gallo, happens to be the strength conditioning coach for some MMA greats. Yoel Romero,
Mm.
Ilia Topuria currently, Alexandra Topuria, um, Yoel Romero, George Masvidal. He's trained all these professional fighters, professional boxers. He's a black belt judoka. He he competed for the national team. He's a strength and conditioning coach, and I was like, wait a minute, I can ask him like where would be the safest place. So him and another guy referred me to my current professor, Carlos Sainz, and me and my wife went there, and then we started to do jujitsu again. And I remember leaving the first class, and I was like, this is awesome. I'm gonna do this now. And then I've been doing jujitsu ever since, and that's how I got into it. But it was like I'm never gonna do it again. And then my wife,
Mm.
I'm grateful that my wife convinced me to go do it again, and I don't regret it. I think everybody should learn a martial art because I mean it does create two kind of weird conflicts. It enhances somebody's personality. So if the person's not the nicest person or cocky or kind of a douchebag, it doesn't really do anything to reel them in because it just makes them drunk with power the moment they become more capable, which is kind of the double-edged sword, and it's a reality that
Yeah.
nobody really talks about, but it's a truth. And then the second is that somebody who is unsure of themselves becomes a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable because now they're reassured that I can hold my own in case. And it's just this weird level of confidence that makes you feel secure.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a awesome book. It's on my shelf. Transforming trauma with jujitsu. So for me, martial arts, I put it off, I put it off, I put it off. I put off engaging in the combat sports for so long because of past body violation experiences. And I was like, finally, I was like, well, this is gonna help. Like, this is going to like, I'll have new connections in my mind about contact, about power. And, so ultimately, like the biggest barrier ended up being my biggest why with continuing training and why I put my 5-year-old daughter in jujitsu as well. So I started training when she did. I was like, well, she's brave enough to go do this, I can be brave enough too. So we've been on the mats together for 2 years. And for having a daughter, I was like, she knows how, to manage distance and how to, she just has these like built-in self-defense skills, which are going to serve her whole life. And me too. It took a lot of work to get there. And like I remember even the first 6 months of training, just the contact, literally the proximity to people was so overwhelming to me. I It took me a long time to like start being more comfortable in that space. I have my blue belt now. So
Congrats.
I've stuck with it, but man, like the journey is not physical alone. Um, and like you're saying, it's also a great equalizer. Like the mat doesn't lie. Like fake you can't fake it on the mat. Like if something's not working, it's not working. And you either need to be stronger or like have a better technique or um yeah, so I think that that built-in struggle and humility is really healthy and really good, and it bonds you to people in a really unique way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah,
100%.
I and then going back to kind of the start of this conversation about problem solving, I see so many parallels with like rock climbing, which is when at a climbing gym someone sets a route that is going to be free climbed without a rope. It's called a problem. So they're designing problems for you to solve with your body. With jujitsu, it's problem solving that the wall. It's like climbing a wall that's fighting you
That
back.
moves, yeah.
So
The wall
it's
moves and,
like
and tries to
yes,
kill you.
yeah. And then parkour, I would say, is you are the route setter. So you go into an environment and you're setting your own route to climb or move through. So there's just so much like awesome overlap between these practices, and like I appreciate that MovNat encourages people to be movement generalists because the skills apply across everything. Whether you're
100%.
grappling someone or just shrimping across the mat, you're like, oh, I know how to shrimp, but now I know how to do it. I know why I'm doing it because I'm getting out from under this dude's side control or whatever. Um, so I think situating these movements into practices, whether that's climbing up a rock in Colorado or fighting a dude down the street, like I think movement is richest when it's in our lives. And unfortunately, in our society, we have to go seek out those opportunities, whether
Uh,
it's through play, through sport, or uh, labor through our work.
yeah, 100%. Natural movement translates to every aspect of your life, and especially, the combative side. Everything on the floor, get ups, side bend sits, all those positions present themselves in a grappling context. You know, one of my one of my videos that made me like judge somebody pretty hard was watching a video on Dr. Mike Israel talking about how the Turkish get up is a useless exercise. It's a sideshow, and it's like him not
Huh.
understanding that he's like that's not going to get you strong. And I'm like, again, strength is relative. Number one, number two, how is it not going to get you strong? Because the more I do it, the heavier the kettlebell becomes. Now I get it; it's not a 300-pound kettlebell, but it's pretty hard to stand up trying to hold the thing. And he doesn't understand that the task is get up off the floor. The constraint is the position in the kettlebell. get up, keeping your arm fully extended overhead, right? It's teaching you how to get up. But you can
Mhm.
apply the same get up with a sandbag, right? Me and you had a conversation earlier this year about doing it with like, a 100 pound, 150 pound sandbag, a 200 pound sandbag. And that one
150
mimics,
pounds.
yeah,
Yes.
that one mimics, side
It's a
control.
grappling. It's a
Yeah,
grappling movement. Yeah.
side control, arm over the head. And I've used it. I've literally picked up people from the floor that they have
Mhm.
me in side control, and I just get up into octopus, grab the leg, pick them up, and then for fun, I walk them around the gym, and then I put them
Yeah.
down. And
Yep.
it exists. And even the split squat get up, if you reorient yourself into like a half guard shell and you take the
Mhm.
underhook and you get to your
Yeah.
elbow roll up and now you post your hand and then you get to the split squat, that's a sweep.
Mhm.
Up to
Yeah.
that point is a sweep where you're getting on top. So the movements translate. A throwing movement is a two in boxing, right? If you
Mhm.
mess
Yep.
with clubs at all and you do outside mills is very close to a jab. All of these things overlap, and that's where the disconnect comes from a lot of people is that they don't recognize that the movement, the idea or the concept of movement is not to lift the barbell up off the floor and put it back repetitively. It's taking all these things that you are exposed to from infancy as a child, as a kid, and or exploring the ground as an adult, and learning how those things connect through tension, relaxation, through points of support, through all these different things, perception drills, whatever it is. And it's going to make you a generalist and a better mover. And if you have that, then there's nothing that you can't necessarily overcome. So that's my rant, and I'm sticking to it.
Great.
Before we end the call, because we're getting to our hour, I extend this opportunity to anybody in the chat that wants to potentially ask a question. Feel free to ask a question. Shelby, this is your opportunity to ask me a question about anything, whether it's MovNat specifically, and if I'm allowed to answer it, I'll answer it. If it's about natural movement, if it's about my experience, whatever you want to ask me, you can ask me anything you want, and I will answer if I can.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to hear it. If anyone has questions who are on the call, that'd be cool to hear if there's anything.
Yeah. And then if you have anything to ask, feel free to ask me anything. And then if not, we just call it a day. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my question is, do you work with older adults doing MovNat?
Yes, 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 yes. Have several clients that are over 60 years of age, and well, we'll just say several clients over 50 years of age. My first experience was my very first client was elderly person, and it was such an interesting thing because he was morbidly obese. He was in his 70s, and he was at 5:30 a.m. And he was my first client. I had gotten my certified personal trainer. I just started working at this gym. They got me this client. I walk in, I meet the guy. He used to do um, weight training when he was younger, like powerlifting and stuff like that. And he was very active. And he's a prominent attorney. And I'm going through the whole nine. I'm doing like my intake form. I measure his blood pressure. I'm taking his weight. We're having a conversation, and I go, "What are your goals?" And he goes, "I want to bench press 2 and a quarter by my 75th birthday." And I said, "You want to bench press 225 pounds by your 75th birthday?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm going back to like everything I know, and I'm like, "Dude, your blood pressure's super high. You're gonna get a heart attack," because, and then he like looked at me and he goes, "What happened?" I said, "Well, I think we should focus on this first." And he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, no offense, but I'm not paying you to tell me what I'm gonna work on first. I'm paying you to help me accomplish a goal, and my goal is to bench press 2 and a quarter by my 75th birthday. So if you can't help me get there, then can you talk to somebody to find me a different trainer?" And I was like, all right, I guess we're bench pressing. And he hit 225 by his 75th birthday, and it was pretty cool. And he still trains today. He's like, I've been in the industry now for like 15 years, so he's like in his 80s. And
Mm.
78, he's like about 86, I think, at this point.
Wow,
And
cool.
he still works out and he still trains. And then I trained his wife. And then when I started getting into natural movement, I had an elderly client who had injured her back when she was out of town with her grandkids. She came back to me and she was telling me about her back and all these issues and her fear. And then I started to realize when we started to have the conversation that her fear was the floor. She was like, I'm scared that if I get on the floor, I'm not going to be able to get back up. And that day I was like, how about we work on getting off the floor? And she's like, oh no, 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 I can't get on the floor. And I said, no, we'll have fun. Let's do it from the bench. We had a high table. So I started to talk her through how to do it on a high table, which is still a floor. It's just elevated. And then we went to the floor and I taught her the tripod getup, which if I could do it all over again, I would have the first getup I would have taught her would have been a prone getup. But it's the tripod getup, and she learned how to do that, and she was like so happy and so excited. And when I saw that and I saw how powerful it was, that's what it
Mhm.
became. So when I work a lot with elderly, everything is the floor. I just put them on the floor.
Mhm.
And part of my
Yeah.
assessment process is that too. Get on the floor and can you get up without using your hands? And that gives
Mhm.
them a come to Jesus moment too, where they're like, oh my God, I can't get up. And then the panic comes in, and then you got to settle them, and you're like, oh, you're okay. I'm going to teach you how to get off the floor. And
Mhm.
my last client that I have now, he can get off the floor 5 or 6 different ways. Albeit he has
Mhm.
to use a little bit of his hands, but he can do a figure four get up, he can do a split squat, he can do a tripod, he can do a prone, and then he can do all those variations rocking. And he can segmental roll, and he loves it. He's like, man, get up, get up, get up. I love get up. I love get up. It's a really great experience.
That's so awesome. And I think, man, that's something just I can hear in how you're talking. Like working with older adults, just it's so rewarding because the quality of life benefits are just so immediate. Like just the feedback that we've gotten from our class, everything from like I don't experience urine loss anymore to like my posture is better and I can pick up my grandkids, I can get up and down off the ground.
I
Like
have more energy. I don't get tired as
yeah,
quick.
I tripped and I tripped and then I caught myself, so it's like these resilience things that are, great for the general population, but I feel like they're just so precious with older adults. Like it's just really rewarding
Yeah.
to actually have like this work really matter.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with elderly populations is the loss of autonomy, right? Which leads to a lot of like mental degradation, not only from like a cognitive standpoint, but from a social and an emotional, because now they feel
Yeah.
bad that their kids have to come and take care of them, and they feel like they're taken away from people's lives, and there's all these weird, intricate like social, economic, and mental factors that impact them.
Yeah.
And the moment that they recover their physical autonomy, and the moment that they have the ability to do without assistance, it's a game changer. And
Mhm.
then it trickles, it has like a trickle down effect, right? Because now their kids feel safe. Or their kids are like, oh my God, like I'm not concerned. Like my one of my elderly clients, he just got back into skipping, and his daughter was walking and she sees her dad skip, and she had this face, and I looked at her and I said, when's the last time you saw your dad skip? And she goes, I don't think I've seen my dad skip in like 30 years.
Mhm.
And he can skip now. So, I mean, it's not like he's not the Flash. He's a
Mhm.
72-year-old man skipping, but he can provide the coordination and the effort to skip. And
Mhm.
if you can skip, that you've been able to perform one of the most complex human movements that exists, number one. And number two, you can move fast for your age. And if you can do that, then
Mhm.
the likelihood of you falling is starting to decrease, right? Because you're kind of combating that sarcopenia kind of thing. And yeah, it's just such a game changer for them. And then watching how it impacts the rest of the family is a rewarding thing. I think anybody who gets into this field gets into the field because you have a passion of wanting to provide the experience of what changed in your life, right? Because there's
Mhm.
really nothing to describe or explain one's own journey of becoming physically autonomy, right? Or having possessing physical autonomy and high movement competency. The better you
Mhm.
move, the better you feel, the better you are at life. It's just the reality. And when there's nothing that I can say that will grant you a purview of what the actual experience is. And
Mhm.
when they start to get that for themselves, it's really one of the most powerful things you'll witness as a professional because it's overcoming. I've had people cry when they do something. Like they do a thing like
Mhm.
you cried when you did the balance, not because of the fear, but
Mhm.
because of the accomplishment. And that happens now with regular things. Somebody who's had back pain and can pick something up off the floor without back pain can bring somebody to tears. Somebody who had
Mhm.
this fear of falling and couldn't get off the ground, the moment that they realize, oh, I can get off the ground whenever I want,
Mhm.
can bring them to tears, right? So it's really a powerful thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like in Wisconsin, the state that I live in, we're number one in falls, in hospitalizations and deaths related to falls. And the statistic, kind of what you were saying about autonomy, is that within 1 year of a fall, like people are at risk of passing away
Hmm.
because of health decline. It's like a pretty problematic statistic. And so I think if, yeah, like increasing resilience is just beneficial across the board
Yeah.
for people's lives. Like it's super important.
Yeah, the research with falls has always been very interesting, right? Because you have muscle quality research related to falls, where they do like muscle biopsies and they check muscle quality, or they do muscle
Yeah.
myography, and then they say, well, the less muscle quality you have, right? The poorer the muscle quality is, the more likely you are to fall or die earlier, right? All-cause mortality increases, whether it's cardiovascular disease, diabetes, fall, whatever it is. Any of those can increase, or all of them all increase at once, right? Then you have this thing that's like, well, if you fall in the year, you're more likely to pass away, right? And that leads to they fractured a bone because at that point they were also osteoporosis or osteopenia. They fractured a bone. Now they have fear of movement. And then the healthcare system also has them fear of movement too. And then the family doesn't want them to move either. And it's the worst thing you could do because now it makes the situation
Mhm.
tenfold. And that's why they end up passing away because now they get worse. But when you look at all of that, right, we use research to try and answer this question that's common sense.
Mm.
You just won't fall if you just do, right? If you remained active, if you challenged yourself every day, and if you lived a life that had movement in it,
Mhm.
you wouldn't have a muscle myography like muscle quality
Yeah.
issue. You probably don't
Yeah.
have a cardiometabolic disease. So it's always like a weird thing for me because I lived in academia, I worked in a clinical setting in the hospital, and you see it, and it's like we're trying to explain something that's logically already explained through experience. and
Mm.
and then we try and trigger and point at these statistics that are like, oh, this is the cause. Like I was watching a podcast where they're like, you know what the number one indicator of all cause mortality is? Big toe strength. And it's like, oh, if you walk barefoot and
Mhm.
jump and jog and run and lift heavy things, your big toe is going to be pretty strong. So why are
Mhm.
we measuring it? Or
Yeah.
oh, and then years ago was the biggest indicator of all cause mortality is you not being able to get up off the floor without the use of your hands. The more
Mhm.
points of
Yeah,
contact you
and
have,
grip strength as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
Yeah.
grip strength is another one. But all of these are the next big study that came out and shows you what the biggest all-cause mortality. And when you look at all those factors, they're a result of lack of movement, lack of
Yeah.
challenge, lack of effort, lack of this. So it's just such a
Mhm.
it's not funny, but at the same time, it's like we're attributing something that we don't have to attribute anything to because the answer is right in
Mhm.
front of you. Just live life
Yeah.
and don't ever stop and you'll be okay. But I guess it's important that we
Yeah.
have something to point a finger at. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, any additional questions?
No, I'll just say the last that what you just said made me think of Katie Bowen's work, all of her work, nutritious movement, and her concept of stacking. And so even if you're not getting to the gym all the time, there's plenty of movement opportunities in our day-to-day life, and that's what we try to talk to our older adults in our class about. Is like you could be doing these calf raises while you're holding your grocery cart, waiting in line. Like we live in a world, we live in bodies. We can find so many ways of moving them, even if we're not doing barbell stuff or, specific lifts. So, yeah, I think kind of we have to work to bring movement back into our lives. And it's just, it's fun to do that together. And there's plenty of ways to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. This is a very similar point. My not I think my last guest was Noah Moshe, who's a graduate candidate student where she's doing medical anthropology through natural movement, and she talks about that. Like she went and interviewed people and been to their houses and seen them like replace their dining room with floor sitting opportunities or creating a playroom for their kids that serves as like a movement stimulus place where they can like balance and climb and jump. And because we're in a different point societal wise, right, it's there's this perception of, oh, I can't do movement out in public, it's embarrassing, but it's
Yeah.
like it's the opposite. It's like you should be trying to fit in movement wherever you can for you because of where we are now. that's neither
Yeah.
here nor there. Well, Shelby,
Yeah.
I truly want to thank you for taking the time out of your day and having this conversation. You're somebody who's definitely noticeable in the community, and very, like, you produce a lot of like great content, and you can see that in your own community physically. It's something amazing to look at, as a fellow professional and a fellow peer in the industry. And when I see it, I wish more people did what you did. And I hope to see more of that, as I continue to explore this realm. So I truly thank you for taking the time out of your day and allowing me to kind of give you another opportunity to speak to the world, so to speak. So
Yeah. Thanks,
thank you.
Brian. It's been really fun.
All right. Well, everybody, this will go on YouTube at some point. So have a wonderful
All right.
day and take care and have a good one. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.